Hey there, Winnie here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today I'm going to be working in the Mythographic Menagerie book. So I am going to be coloring this page. I just think it's so stinking cute. So let's dive right in. Hey there, happy Sunday. Hope everyone's enjoying their day. I'm going to be using Prismacolor pencils throughout this colored pencil page. I hope everyone's keeping warm. I know that some people have been hit really hard with the snow. We've had more snow this year than I can remember in a really long time. So as I go through here, I'm going to be using this black, and I'm going to leave little patches where I'm going to add some brown tones just to give it a little bit of variety in the coloring, and just leave a little tiny bit around his eye. Going up on the nose, same kind of thing. I'm going to be mixing a variety of shades, just using individual strokes to kind of get that fur-like texture. So here I'm coming in with the French gray to kind of give it a little bit of a warmer tone and just a little variance, because raccoons are not just, they're not like zebras where they're completely black and white. They do have a lot of brown tones in them. As I'm coloring, I tend to color a lot of this with individual little strokes. Now I'm sure if you go on the fine art blogs, they'll tell you a little bit better what to do to get more realistic fur. But I do find that if I make individual strokes when I'm coloring and make like around his eyebrows just a little bit of a jagged marks, it just looks a little more realistic. So here you can see I'm just working in little patches and going in kind of the direction that the fur lays. And just keep adding little strokes all the way around the face. This kind of, when you make those kind of strokes, what happens is you lay down a little more color, and as your pencil lifts up with your little, almost like a flicking motion, it gets a little thinner and it has kind of a more realistic hair-like appearance. Personally, I think he looks kind of good just like this, with nothing more than just those little strokes, but I do add quite a bit more color as we go along. And here I'm just kind of taking note to fill in the very edges, defining them a little darker than the rest, just to add definition and make his arm kind of stand out from the rest of his body, defining, you know, the areas of overlap there. The authors kind of put in little marks indicating some hair, so I do tend to use those marks as an area to put in a little more deeper saturation of black. Once again, you just want to keep all these strokes going in the direction that the hair would lie. And just using your judgment as to how compressed you want them to be. If you know, the closer you put them together, the more that color becomes more uniform. I do try and I move around from one section to the other, because I found that if I just systematically work from top to bottom, what can happen is your mind develops a pattern and you end up with it looking less random than if you kind of move around the page a little bit more. And here I'm just doing the same kind of thing, kind of going in between the spaces, not really taking care if I touch directly on the black or, you know, trying to evenly space it or anything like that. I'm just putting in some random color with the French gray. Now, I'm not too concerned about whether or not I get color in that diamond or over those dots. In certain parts of this picture later on, you gotta decide what you're gonna do in the final outcome of your picture. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm probably gonna use some sort of acrylic paint pen, so I'm not super worried about whether or not I get some color in there. But if you were to want to, say, color them in white, then you should probably think about that. Once again, just kind of filling this in. These little raccoons are just so cute. I'm really having a good time with this page. And here, I hadn't put the black in, but I already had this pencil in my hand, and I don't think it really matters whether or not you put the French gray in first or whether you put the black in first. If they're going to overlap, you may find that you want one over the other. In this case, I think it turned out just fine to do it this way. But see how this, I just worked from top to bottom, and you can kind of see more rows, whereas when I was working on the other arm, it was a little less row-like. To me, his center kind of looks in rows. And this is not me being critical. This is just me kind of pointing out observations as I see things, both to help you, but also just to bring awareness to my own coloring, and so that I can be aware that if I don't want those things, that just changing how I lay it down can make a difference. Now I go back in with the black. I do think it does change it a little bit more. To me, that arm, the black is a little more pronounced. In the end, I kind of go over it with, I think, the 30% gray. So in the end, I don't think it's going to matter at all. But it is just something to be aware of, is that the color that you lay on last is probably going to pop out a little bit more. Let me know in the comments. So it's hard when I'm doing these voiceovers when I'm doing a big area like this where, I'm kind of doing the same thing, and I really don't think you need to hear me repeat, hey, just put in random strokes here. Would you prefer to have music? Would you prefer just silence? Would you prefer that at this point I were to speed it up, since you just saw me do it, color the arm and the face, which are pretty much colored exactly the same way as the body? So let me know in the comments what you would like to see. I kind of feel like if I was a colorist coloring along, I could speed this up if I wanted to on my own. But I do know that I have been disappointed sometimes when I feel like I'm watching a real life or a real time color along, and then they skip ahead because they've repeated the process. And even though it's the same process, I still like to see them decide where to put in darker shades or that kind of stuff. But maybe that's just me. So as I grow, I really want to provide content that you guys like and want to watch. So feel free to give me comments. Also, let me know where you're coming from, where you live, the city or state or country that you live. And I'd really like to get to know you guys a little bit better as we grow as a community. I will say my grandson's growing up and he's starting to be awake a little bit more, and he's a very content baby, so he doesn't cry very much, but it's pretty exciting. As I start down here on the tail, I'm going to be shading with the black just on this one edge, on the one side, and I'm leaving space like I did in his mask on his face to add some brown tones to it. And while it's subtle, I'm going to be using, I think, 90% French gray. It's still definitely a change there. I apologize. You can probably hear Miss Ellie trooping around in my office here. So here's what I was talking about. I go in with this 90% French gray, and I'm just adding just that little bit of a, sorry about that, I guess I put the color right over where I'm coloring. But I just want a little variation in tone there, and then I go in with the 50% on the edges. Okay, I think I was able to move those so that they're out of our way now. But basically, I just want a little variation in color in this tail. And then I take that same lighter shade that I added at the, on the side of the darker rings, and I'm using that to kind of shade into the lighter areas. And then blending that out with the 30%. And then coming in with a peach beige, I really want to bring a little bit of warmth. Raccoons, if you look at pictures of them, their white isn't, like, they definitely have a warmer tone to them at times, and I felt like this color really brought in the warmth to the coat and made it more, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. But I'm just going in and just very randomly adding it here and there. I don't have any rhyme or reason to where I'm putting it, just adding it in to add that little kind of a pop of color. I just feel like it adds a lot of life to his coat. Now I'm bringing that same color into his ears. Bringing in a 20% French gray. I'm basically going to go over the entire area. I'm not trying to blend per se, but what I am trying to do is there's a lot of areas that still have a real stark white, so I want to add this to them so that the coat doesn't it just softens it up just a touch. I apologize when I get out of camera like that. It's very hard when I'm this zoomed in. Sometimes I get just right on the edge of where I'm out of camera. And I do my best. But occasionally I have little mishaps, so I apologize. But I do feel like the overall benefits of being this zoomed in are better for you guys to be able to see specifically what I'm doing and see my pencil actually on the paper. Occasionally that gets the wrong angle too because I gotta change my hand to get into an area. This could be an optional step for you if you like the more the look of him without the blending. I'm kind of torn because I did kind of like it prior to adding this, and then part of me feels like this makes it look a little more finished. So, but what I'm not doing is I'm not burnishing it hard. Here I'm just deepening up the black. I'm actually going to do this a couple of times throughout, just working on it. It's something that, you know, when you're coloring, you'll put a layer on and it'll look deeper than it did the first time. And so you think, oh yeah, that's much better. And then as you color, it'll catch your eye again, and I say just add layers until you're happy with how it looks. When you're doing like fur and things like that, or wood, sometimes I like a little bit of graininess left in. And here I'm going back in with the black, and I really just want to go over the very tips of the edge of his arm here, just to add that segregation and just make it kind of pop off the page a little bit. And I'm going to go all the way around his body, his arms, in between his chest area there, around his eyebrows. Here I'm going in and just shading in his little hands just a little bit more, blending that all out, and just going in with a little bit of a deeper color along the ridges of his little fingers, his little fingies. I'm going to go ahead and add some music and just let you finish up your raccoon as we move into the second one. I will put another annotation up so that you know when I'm talking again. Here I'm adding just a little bit of yellow and brown tones to the sides of the pages of the book. This just gives it a little antique type of look to it. You could use any brown or yellow combination. You could even use a gray here. I just think it adds a little visual interest. So while I'm doing that, I'm excited to announce that I now have a Jazzy Doodle Facebook page. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. I just barely made it, so I think I only have like 2 followers. I haven't even sent out invites for anyone to like it. But what I've done is I've put each of the videos that I have on my channel are on there, and in the comments is a link to the actual video. My thought is that it would be another place that you could go to find, maybe you're more on Facebook than you are YouTube, and it would notify you that there's a new video up. Also, it's just another place that you can write in any questions that you might have or comments, and we can have a little more communication. I'm hoping to use this a little bit for announcements, like if I have upcoming events or when I do a giveaway, like the rules will be there. Sometimes, I personally sometimes find things a little easier when I can see them in a written form versus a video. I don't mind watching videos, but then when you want to refer back to something, it can be a little harder in video format. So that's kind of how I plan to use that page. So it's just under Jazzydoodledesigns, and I hope to see you all there. So here I'm just adding a little pops of color with the yellow on the pages, both to antique the pages and just to add some visual interest. So what are you guys all working on? Are you coloring today, or is today the day that you do all your meal prep and your housework, or do you have things going on with your kids? My kids are grown now. In fact, as you know, I just became a grandma. They also have a 7-year-old boy. He's going to be 8 in a couple of weeks, and he's a delight. He's from my son's wife's first marriage, and I love him equally as much as Mac. It's just Mac's my first grandbaby, so that brings its own special, I don't know, there's a specialness to that as well. But now that my kids are grown, I find coloring and my art has a different quality to it because I can put a little more time into it, which is nice. Just deepening these shadows here. I'm going to be doing a series coming up. For those of you that saw the adult terminology reference guide, each of those things I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into, just so that they'll be short videos. My goal is to keep them like maybe under 10 or 15 minutes, but just talking about, for example, when do you use a fixative? Why would you want to use a fixative? Should you use a fixative? Is there any downside to using it? That kind of thing. So that if somebody's talking about, maybe in a Facebook group or something like that, if someone mentions a particular product, you will have a resource that you can go to really find out more information about it. And then I'll touch briefly on the different art mediums that are out there to color with. And then based on you guys' response, we'll do deeper dives into that. So I know I really enjoy using my Neocolor 2s, and I haven't done that on my channel yet. So that is something that I'm going to be exploring a little bit more. Also, distress ink. So I have all of the distress ink and the oxides. I've been collecting them for years, and I use them quite a bit in card making. So I'm pretty versed in how they work. I don't know how they'll work on the paper that you find in coloring books. That's my only concern, because my experience is they do better on a glossier type of cardstock. And so I think that there's certain books, like maybe Joanna Basford or something like that, where the paper might do well with it. So I do plan on doing a little experimenting with that. Also, ink tints. I really enjoy the colors of ink tints, and I've done some playing around with it, just not in coloring books yet. So that's something that I will be exploring coming up. Feel free to always comment and let me know the kind of things that you'd like to see, or advice on what I should talk about on these videos. I always am worried about being a little boring, because I don't know if you guys want to talk about like life events, or like my life events, or if you want to hear about things going on in the world, like the Alex Murdaugh trial and how wild some of that was. Or maybe you don't want to hear about any of that because you go to coloring channels to get away from all of that. So I really, sometimes when I do these, I just struggle to figure out what to chat about, what you'd like to hear. I'd love to hear what you guys' favorite snacks are. Do you have any snacky snacks that are top of your list? Something that maybe you eat while you're coloring, or maybe it's your go-to when you're having a bad day, or just what are your favorites? I'm always looking for new snacky snacks. I've been hearing about these chips called All Dressed, and maybe if I have any followers that are in Canada, you can let me know what you think of them. I've heard that they're really amazing. Here in the States, the only place that I found you can buy them is on Amazon, and they're like $10 a bag. And while I'm a firm believer in people should buy what they love and enjoy it, even if, I mean, as long as you're not, taking out loans for your snacky snacks, I think everything's fair game. But there's just a part of me that I just can't spend $10 on a bag of chips yet. So I need to hear from you guys if you think that it would be worth spending $10 on a bag of chips, because I've heard that they're really, really amazing. But I don't know. I do love potato chips. Salty snacks are probably one of my favorites. I like salty, I like spicy, I like hot food. Not that I think that all dressed chips are spicy, but I've heard they're really, really good. So doing this wood here, I'm trying to build up kind of a color, some undertones to this wood so that the brown is more rich, and as I lay down these colors, once again, just trying to be a little bit random. I want a little bit of the cream to pop through, and then, you know, I'm adding in this kind of orangey color just to add kind of a rich honey look to the wood. And then I'm going to go in and add my overall color of the wood, which I believe is chocolate, and I'll color almost all of it over, but you'll still see the little undertones of these colors as the brown goes over it. In spots that it only has yellow, it'll kind of lighten up, and the spots where it has the orange, it'll pick up those orangey tones in the brown. And then I'm going to go back in with, I think, dark umber, or I think it's dark umber, and I'll put in more of the, like where the, what's it called, the curl of the wood, no, the burl, is it a burl of the wood, and just kind of the oh, maybe, yeah, here I am going over the majority of it with the chocolate. The pencil looks a lot darker on the side, you know, the actual barrel looks a little darker than I picture chocolate looking. But you can see how the different tones kind of pop through the brown, giving it a little variety, which I think it keeps it from looking quite so flat. One of the things I hope to be working on personally, my coloring goal, is I'm a little bit of an impatient person by nature, and so just slowing down my pencil strokes and really smoothing it out a little bit. Being a little more patient. And that's one of the reasons why I really want to learn colored pencil, is because it is a slower medium, and so much in my life has always been go, go, go. You know, working full time, having kids, having pets, doing family stuff, trying to have time for your art. I'm always impatient to be on to the next picture, to be on to the next project. And colored pencil is not a medium that you can just whip out a page. And so it's my, I don't know, struggle in life. And so I'm trying to embrace it and incorporate a little more of that into my life, and develop the patience to I don't know, to challenge myself to to be okay with however long it takes to color. I think I've always been very goal oriented in terms of getting things done, and now I want to kind of focus on the enjoyment of it and the zen of it, so to speak. How about you guys? Do you ever struggle with being impatient in your artwork, maybe rushing through in order to just get done or to move on, to look at all your coloring books and think, oh my gosh, there's so many pages here, I just need to hurry up? So this video is going to be part 1. I like to keep my videos generally all in one, but I really want to get a video out for you guys, so I am going to do this one in 2 parts. So let me know what you think about that. As you can tell, I'm really open to feedback from you guys. I'd like to build a community where we get to know each other and we're having some communications between us. I'm not quite ready to do the whole live stream yet. Maybe someday. But at the same time, I'd love to get to know you guys. Some of you have reached out, and I really enjoy that and look forward to your comments, your suggestions. Tell me where you're coming from. Tell me what you're eating. Share with me a little bit about yourselves. Here I'm just adding a little bit of the grain of the wood. Maybe that was the word I was looking for earlier. Sorry I'm out of camera here. It's really hard when I work all zoomed in. Sometimes I think I'm still in camera when I really am not. So apologies, but I'm just basically doing the same thing that I've been doing. Just adding in a little bit of dark and grain to the wood. Deepening these up because they're kind of more in the shadows. This little section right here. So here I'm starting the sky. What you want to do, or what I do here, is if you notice is right as I get close to that moon, I leave a little bit of white right around the edge of the moon. And as I go in, I think on this color I actually got pretty close to it, but in all the subsequent colors coming up, I'm going to not get right up next to the moon because I want it to give off a little bit of a halo effect. So using a real light touch here and kind of more the side of the pencil, I just want to start blending because I'm going to be blending some blues and purples to make this night sky. So I want to leave these layers pretty light at this point. So this is actually not the lightest color that I'm going to use. This is maybe, I think I use 4 colors in this, and this is like the second color. So now I'm coming in with this Imperial Violet, adding it in. Once again, keeping a pretty light layer, overlapping that that blue lake or whatever. I can't remember what the last color was. But I'm just kind of blending the 2 colors, overlapping them a little bit, trying to stay on the side of the pencil to keep those layers light, just so that you'll have a little bit of a smoother blend. Sorry, I get my big old head in there. Now I'm coming in with a violet. So just working on keeping kind of a smoother blend here. I think the key with this guy is the number of layers that I do. So just, even though this is kind of not the darkest tone, I go ahead and I go over my dark tones with it. Just, I feel like when you blend like that, when you bring all the colors in, unless that color is really light, I think it just really helps the cohesiveness of the blend. Now coming back in and just keep adding these little layers, darkening it up slowly and blending it out. I like the look of skies that have more than one color in them, as opposed to just doing, like I could have done like a darker blue to a lighter blue. I just thought it would be kind of fun to do the purple with the blue. Okay, not sure where the color chart came in, but we'll go with it. The joys of editing. I'm not even going to go back and try and fix that. It was so short. Plus then you guys can see all of my bloopers. See how I don't take the color all the way up to directly to the moon? At this point I hadn't made up my mind if I was going to bring any color into that center. I kind of wanted to keep it light. In the end, I do bring the blue into the center. Apologies for being slightly out of camera there. Once again, it's really hard to see when you're filming sometimes. Like it looks, you know, you've been in camera the whole time, and then you make a little adjustment and your page shifts a little and it kind of pops you out of camera. So just kind of working my way between the three colors. There's only three colors now, and then later I decide I want to deepen it up some more and I add a fourth color. But at this point I'm just kind of going back and forth between the three, blending them out, and trying to really emphasize. If I wanted to go, if you want a really strong glow look, the key to that is the contrast. You need the dark, much darker than I've went here, to really make the moon glow. I wasn't really going for a glow effect. I'm not looking for that in this picture. I just want a little bit of a halo there. Here I'm bringing that purple down into the blue just ever so lightly. Just kind of kissing the paper with the pencil. As you can tell, I'm using the blue to give that little bit of a glow effect. And this is just kind of how I color, which has been my struggle in doing color alongs. That sky is not finished. I find when I color, I do better when I color something and then walk away, not literally walk away, but move on to another part of the picture. And then I notice, like for example here, I noticed that I had forgotten the back of the shelves when I did the wood. So that's what I'm doing now. But back to the sky, I find that I get my best effects when I'm working on the sky and I get to the point that I did when now I moved on. If I continue to work, sometimes it doesn't turn out as well as if I move on to something else and then go back with fresh eyes and look at it, and you'll find that you view it differently. Sometimes when you're working on something, you'll think it's not working and you move on, or even to the point of leaving the room, going and getting a snacky snack, and coming back, and you'll see, oh, it actually does work better than I think. Other times, you'll be working on something and you'll think, oh, this is looking really good. And you leave and come back, or you move on to another part of the page, and when you look back, you see, oh, I need to blend more here, or this color is really popping out when it shouldn't be, or something like that. So you'll often see that if you do color alongs with me, you might find it a little frustrating. And I encourage you to to just do you. Like, if you noticed when you were doing the wood that I missed the back, and you think, oh, I want to do that right now, feel free to pause the video and do that part so that you're doing it in the order that makes sense to you. I just know that sometimes that's how I work. Here I start with that, and I decided no, I wanted to start with a darker color. So I switch pencils here to the violet. Some of these are very conscious decisions on my part in terms of, I know sometimes I get asked how I choose my colors. So knowing that I wanted to do the purple and blue sky influenced what color my feather would be or my quill would be. I could have done it in any color, but I like to pull the color that I used in the sky down into another part of the page. So to me, it kind of made sense to bring it down into this quill so that I have a little, so I'm using the same colors in different areas of the page, and that can really help make your pages a little more cohesive. I tend to use quite a few colors in my pages, but if you notice, you will see a theme with me of using, while I use a lot of colors, I use the colors in more than one area. I'm not one that necessarily goes and picks out a color palette prior to coloring and says, okay, here's the 6 colors I'm going to use on this page. It's just not how I personally work. I think they can be an amazing resource, so don't get me wrong. And I do take inspiration from them sometimes. But it's just not my maybe number one go-to. So knowing that I had the purples and blues going on influenced what color I decided to make the smoke here. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming up. Here I'm going in with the cobalt turquoise, which is, there's 3 turquoisey colors in Prismacolor in the blue-green family, and I'm going to be using all 3 of those here. And then I bring in a cool gray just to kind of really deepen some of the parts of this. So my thought is around where the little lines are for the curve of the bubbles, I go in with my darker colors, and then I blend outward just to add a little bit of depth to this bubbly potion smoke. And my goal in this is that as it's coming out of the bowl, it's going to be the deepest turquoises, and then as it, as it wafts out and behind the little raccoon guy and behind the other one's head, it will become lighter. So that is my thought process going into this. Now, there's a lot of different ways, you could make this this smoke. This was just how I chose to do it. But I did kind of pick this color because I feel like the purples and the blues and the teals are kind of more the quote-unquote color palette that I'm going with. I tend to choose my colors very intuitively, which is not at all helpful in a teaching situation, or, you know, a follow along. But so I'll try and tell you guys why I choose the colors that I do as I go. I am a big believer that we all have our own styles and things that are going to work out, and that you will watch me do things and you will pick up a technique here or there or a thought process here and there that resonates with you and you like, and you will carry on in your work. And I think that's fantastic. But then there's going to be other things that I do that you're going to go, why on earth did she do that? Or I would never do that, or that doesn't work for me to color that way. And you'll find another creator that does that particular thing better for you. I think too often people, want to fit everything into the same peg, so to speak. They want everything to fit in one little box, and I follow a lot of different creators, and I find value in what they do. There are pages that I look at or I watch how the person colors and I think, oh, that is so phenomenal. But it's just not really my style, or it doesn't really, maybe the colors that they choose. I love the look of muted colored pages, those light, I don't think muted's the word I'm looking for, but like the pastel-y kind of art that you see where you just barely see the hints of color. And I think it's amazing. And every time I set out to do something like that, it turns into much more intensity and much more saturation, because that's just kind of my style that pops through. It's just kind of how I color. So be okay with your own flavor of how you do things and what you like and what you don't like. And there's artists that I like some of their pages and not all of their pages. And then there's the Chris Changs of the world that are just, every page she does is beautiful. But I'm not her, and I'm probably never going to color each thing with 15 pencils per, she would have used 9 colors in this smoke and it would be flawless and look beautiful. And I'm okay with that. So hopefully, as you color, you will develop your own style and preferences as well. And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy somebody else's process or pick a little piece out of it that works for you. So as you can see, going forward, I'm using a lot less. In fact, I don't think I'm using any of the cobalt turquoise as I move along into this part of the picture. And I'm going to be adding some white tones to it to help me lighten it even more. So I'm just kind of kissing the paper here, just barely adding a touch of this light aqua. And then I'm going to use a white to blend it, just to kind of fade it out, just because I feel like, you know, like anything, it's going to lose a little bit of its color as it makes its way into the world. So just adding a little more color back in. Just kind of touching up little areas that I might have missed. No pun intended there, huh? I amuse myself. I encourage you to do this in your, I don't know, at the end of every page, I go back in and I make these little touch-ups. Because this is kind of a real-time color along, I leave these in. If your preference is that these are edited out, I could do that as well, because I'm not really adding anything here, just touching up little places that I might have missed, or deepening a little bit of a shadow here, that kind of thing. But sometimes on tutorials I've seen people edit these little things out, and sometimes those things make a big difference, just adding, those little touches. So once again, I kind of missed a little piece of bubbly brew. So I'm going back in and remedying that. Wonder what these little raccoons are making. Like, what is their goal, do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think their little potion is designed to do. Is it designed to be given to humans so that they will forget to close the lid on their trash cans, or leave their house unlocked so the little raccoons can get in and get snacky snacks? What kind of mischief do you think they're up to? Or maybe it's for, maybe it's a love potion. So here I go back in and I decide I want this sky darker. I want a little more contrast in there. So I'm going in with this deepest purple. Do you see how the darker I make this purple, the more the moon seems to be glowing in the sky? Even though that's not really that wasn't my full intent. And let me know in the comments too. I'm trying to figure out if I want the moon to, what color I want the moon to be. Like, do I want it to be, have a yellow cast to it, or I don't know. So just kind of incorporating that, some blues down here into this picture. It's almost time for a new cobalt blue. It's my little stubby. So just like I did with the quill, I've taken that blue that I put in that book and I want to put it in a couple of more places in the picture to add that cohesiveness. So these are the same blues that I used in the book down below. This book feels off to me. There's something about the way it's sitting. And maybe I don't know, maybe it's in how I shaded it. It just feels like the side of the book, not the front of the book. I can't tell if it's how it's drawn feels off to me or how I colored it. There's just something about it that feels wonky to me. I think it's the perspective. I feel like I don't know. But either way, I put the darker on the sides and towards the back, just to kind of give it a little look of shadows. So this dark umber is one of the colors I used in the wood. So bringing that in to another spot in the picture. Can you guys believe it's already March? I feel like this year just started and it's already March. I'm just like, I swear every year I get older, it just goes faster and faster. I feel like when you're young, you're always waiting for something. You're waiting to turn 16 to get your driver's license, then to turn 18, then to turn 21. As adults, once you've hit those milestones, then all of a sudden, because I guess because you're not waiting for your next birthday, it just seems to go so fast. I wish I had something really profound to say right here. I feel like I'm more than an hour in and I'm just like, what do I say? What do I talk about? I like how these scrolls turned out. I wonder what's on them. What kind of little witchy parchments are these? Are they how to turn people into toadstools? Are they love potion recipes? Like, what's on these little scrolls? I think I'm going to put a little bit of music on, let you guys just kind of color away, and I'll pop in if I see something. So here I'm bringing in some of those colors from the potion smoke or mist into this book. Same with the grays, just bringing in some of the same grays I've already used. So here I'm introducing a pink shade. I thought it would be a nice complement to the purples and the teals, is to have some of this, whatever potion this is, be kind of a pinkish color. If you notice, all the colors that I choose for this page tend to be kind of high saturation colors, meaning you don't see me using more muted tones like maroons or olive greens. They all tend to be more of a brighter, more saturated colors. So I think that that's part of the thought process for me that goes through when I'm thinking about color choice. I love like olive greens and more of the earthier, what I call earthier tones. So like your terracottas and your, I don't know, mahoganies and stuff like that. But because this page has some of the more brighter colors in it, like in the sky, that really kind of set the tone for the rest of the page. And once again, you can see that I brought in some pink to this page, so I want to add that pink in other elements on the page. So I decided to do another potion bottle using the same 3 pink tones, or 3 pink colors, I should say. When you're coloring, don't be afraid to go to places like Pixabay is a good one. Pixabay is a free, it's a photography site where you can download pictures or use their pictures for artwork. They don't have copyright restrictions on them. And that's a really good place to go and just Google, like you could Google the pictures of bottles. It doesn't have to be magic potion bottles. It can be just any sort of glass jar, and you can kind of get a feel for where to put your highlights, where to put, you know, your darker colors and your lighter colors. And when I'm all done with this page, you know, I'm not afraid to go back in and, for example, looking at this potion bottle now, I think, oh, I think it might be kind of cool to add a little bit of some of the purple tones into the bottom of that potion jar, kind of making it more of a multicolored liquid in there. I think that might be kind of fun. I had to go put my hoodie on. I was a little chilly yesterday. It's been pretty cold this year, and we've had a record amount of snow. It's finally melted off my front yard, but where I live in Colorado, while it'll snow, we have like 300 and, I don't know, 50 days of sun every year. So the snow melts pretty quickly around here. So this year we actually had snow stay on the ground for quite a while, like weeks. And I know you guys that live back east are probably laughing because I've heard that there are places where, you know, from pretty much October, November to March, April, there's snow on the ground. But around here, it just doesn't happen that often. We get too much sun and it just melts off. And my little dog, who's only 10 pounds, she loves the snow, which is kind of funny seeing how she doesn't have much, like she doesn't have an undercoat, she just has hair. So you would think that she would get cold easy and not want to go outside. I see a lot of memes about dogs that are like, no, I'm just going to poop in the house because it's too cold to go out. But that's not my dog. She's kind of quirky. She likes to run around in the snow and play. But there was so much snow that it was even too deep for her to really do that because it would just bury her. So kind of glad that it's melted off a little bit. Here I'm going in and just kind of creating this magic potion bottle. I think chartreuse is such a fun color for stuff like this. It was kind of initially when I looked at this page, I considered doing his bowl of bubbly brew in that green color, in the chartreuse color. I think that would be I think that could be very fun. So once again, just kind of bringing the same colors into other elements on the page. I'm not sure in looking at this if I colored the wrong part of it. It's unclear to me where like when you look at that pink bottle, you can see where the actual stuff in the jar is. And I was kind of unclear when I was coloring this which part was the gloppy part. So I colored it on the right hand side as being the gloppy, you know, stuff, but I don't know if I colored that correctly. I guess there's no right and wrong. I mean, it turns out fine. Nobody's going to look at that and critique this. We don't have art critics at my house, at least, because my husband has the same answer for every page. Because if I ask him to look at stuff, he always jokingly says, "Oh, that looks fantastic," before he even sees it. Like, as he walks in the room, he says it, just to annoy me. And then he'll look at it, but he's very supportive, but he's also, we've been married a long time, so he likes to give me a hard time. So his answers are always, he says something before he even sees it. I'm like, well, could you at least look at it before you say that? And then he laughs, and he does take a look at it. But does he care? Probably not. It's kind of how I feel about some of the stuff he's into. I listen and bob my head. That's what we do for each other. I don't know why specifically, but I just really wanted a little bit of blue in the black of this hat. So I'm just putting some cobalt blue in general in places that were kind of like, it's almost like a highlight for me. Or that was my thought in putting it there. So if you look, I put it, where things would be popping out. So I didn't put the blue in the shadowy areas. I put it more on the areas where you might see a highlight. And when I'm all done coloring the hat, it's a very, very subtle, because it's only just a hint of it. But these are the kind of things that I play with, and just like, I'll do it on this page and I'll be like, oh, I like how that turned out, or it's okay, nothing to write home about. But these are the kind of decisions that I play around with, and then if I like them, you'll find them in upcoming pages or other things that I color. I'll carry it forward. Sometimes I do things and I think, well, that was interesting. And I don't, it's not necessarily something I would do again. Just adding in a little variance of color here. I think this is, actually, this color right here is not black, so I apologize for that. I think this is 70% cool gray is what it is. I try really hard to put the colors that I put down, but it can get tricky when you're editing, because as you can imagine, if this video is going to be just under 2 hours, when you edit, going in, you have to color it for 2 hours, then you gotta splice it and edit things out and add all the colors to it, and then do a voiceover. So for every 2 hours of video that you see, I probably have 10 hours into the video, which I'm okay with. This is totally not me complaining at all. Just that, kind of keep that in mind when you see errors like this. Don't come for me. I'm doing my best. One of the things I'm noticing when I'm coloring sometimes is, you notice I always have that bracelet on, and sometimes when I put my hand down too hard and I lean on that bracelet, it can put little tiny indentions into my pictures, and then when I go to color them, I get these little divots of white that can be kind of hard to color in sometimes. So I need to be conscious of that because I never take this bracelet off. So it's something that I just need to be aware of. But you may notice that occasionally, at least, you know, on my pages. So this hat, once again, is another thing like the sky that I'm gonna finish it close to completion here, and then I will go back in and we'll continue to kind of pick at it as I go along. I'll notice something where there's a little bit of a graininess to it, so I'll go in and fill it in. And then I always do that at the end of the page as well. Just really kind of look over everything and see if there's any areas that I want to kind of touch up. So I'm going to color this little cloud, and this is going to be it for this video for part 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. This really helps me. It helps YouTube know that you guys like my videos and want to see more of them. So thanks so much. Bye-bye.